Right, so good morning. We're going to spend some time talking about the gentle giants of the Gulf, discovering manatees in Florida's pristine springs. I'm also going to pass it on to Lori and then Gina so that they can introduce themselves as well. They are two very important people involved with paddling with the manatees. So go ahead.
Hello, I'm Lori Priest, and I've been working with AGC since 2013. And I've done guided this manatee trip. I do typically the two back-to-back trips for the past 6 years. This is a trip that I love and I really enjoy it overall. And it's great if you like to observe wildlife and enjoy kayaking on some of the pristine rivers down here in Florida. I'll pass it on to Gina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gina McLean, and I'm the volunteer specialist with Save the Manatee Club, based here in Longwood, Florida, just outside of Orlando. And I was thrilled to be contacted by Annie and the organization to sort of offer you some ways to observe manatees in fashion that doesn't interfere with them, but that allows you to have an experience of a lifetime. So thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Gina and Lori. I appreciate it. So agenda for the call today, we've got our hello, welcome, intro about the manatees, talk about the location and lodging of this trip, the activities, the weather, birding, and then the Save the Manatees Foundation with Gina. And then we'll have some time for some questions and answers. Awesome. All right, so to start with, we're going to play a little bit of a game, keeping everybody involved and active. So I'm sure you've all heard of two truths and a lie. So on here, I have two things that are true and one thing that is a lie about the manatees. And I did get these facts from Gina, so thank you for sharing those with me. So if you want to go ahead and put in the chat just the letter of the one that you think is a lie, you can go ahead and send those into the chat. So just spend a couple of moments here sending those in. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for participating and playing a little fun game with us. So if you chose B, you would be correct. And yes, there is a giant manatee plush by Gina behind her. It's a giant manatee. It's adorable. But yes, so the lie on this slide is that manatees can turn their head side to side. Manatees actually need to completely turn their bodies if they would like to move side to side. And I don't know, Gina, do you want to describe a little bit about why that is that they cannot turn their head side to side?
Yes, their anatomy does not allow that. So they don't have sort of a neck like we think about a neck. And so they don't have the way to do this. They can't do that. So they really have no peripheral vision either. So just because the way their eyes are like a camera iris, like they sort of sphincter out and close like that. But yeah, their anatomy just doesn't allow for that. So they have to turn their entire body. And so one quick point is that because their nipple is under here for nursing, they frequently don't know who's there because they can't turn their head and look.
Manatees are such interesting creatures, that's for sure.
Learn something new every day.
Right. Well, thank you, Gina, and thanks for playing, everybody. We'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. There we go. All right, so going into the trips of paddling with manatees, here I've provided maps of the area that will be. So you can see here in Florida exactly where the trip is located. And then to the left, you can see exactly the areas that you will be traveling during the trip. They're all very close to one another. And you get to go to the Crystal River area, the Homosassa Springs, and then over at the Chazawiska hotel that you'll be staying at. So this is just to get an idea of where you're located. And then moving on to the Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park. This is a place we'll be spending a lot of time. It was a tourist attraction since the early 1900s, and it doesn't include an underwater observatory for close-up view of the animals. And really awesome thing about this place is that the park is a refuge. So many of the animals in the park are in rehab for their injuries or illnesses, and some actually may not be able to be released back into the wild, so they're being cared for at the park. And the park does include a wildlife walk and paved trails for wildlife viewing. Really awesome location. I'm going to go ahead and let Lori speak a little bit more and bring a guide's perspective on the state park.
I mean, typically where we will be in the state park, we'll be on the water, kayaking into the state park area to observe the manatees and be up close and personal with them overall. And then one afternoon, we spend a couple hours walking through the wildlife refuge to basically see the animals that were there, reading about them and learning more about them overall. But the trip overall, basically each day we paddle in the morning, and in the afternoon, one afternoon we go to the wildlife park. Another afternoon we go up to Crystal Springs to observe the manatees in the afternoon on the boardwalk around the springs area overall. So that's our typical schedule overall. There's lots of time observing the manatees and also other wildlife in that area.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. And then to talk a little bit about the lodging and the dining on this specific trip. So we do stay at the Chaz Hotel. And the way that it's described even on their website is it's like going back in time with a genuine old Florida architecture and Old South setting. You can rock outside on the decks, lay back in the leather lounges, and soak up all the Southern charm. So really Southern styled stay that you'll be in. And then as for dining, what's really wonderful is that it's provided by the Chaz hosts. They're the ones making the food. And there's this big dining table where all the meals are shared. So it's very family styled. And the Southern style foods that are there, very yummy. And they do include lots of fruits and vegetables, which is wonderful. And then something that with all of our trips, we do have dietary alternatives that are available, but they usually need to be discussed previously with the guides or even the office staff to coordinate with the chef to make sure those things can be provided for you. So again, I'll let Lori talk a little bit about the lodging and the dining.
Well, the Chazowitska Lodge is what I'd call a little diamond in the rough. We didn't know about this lodge, but through some research overall and some exploration, we found it about 5 years ago. And what we love about it overall is it's really the old Florida. I say it's the old Florida that most people never experience. It's called a hotel, but it's really more of a lodge. It's simple, clean, and basic. But what's wonderful about it is all the bedrooms are upstairs. We have probably 2 or 3 single rooms. The rest are double occupancy, and shared large bathroom area overall upstairs. Downstairs, we have the kitchen with family style dining, and it would either be buffet or served family style. And then we have a large, comfortable living room with big old leather couches we can sit down in. And the great thing is the whole group can be together in one area overall. Outdoors, we've got rocking chairs on the porch. There are picnic tables. We often eat our lunch outside. So it's really, it's such a great, I call it a lodge for us to be able to share together. We're the only group that's there. We have it all to ourselves. And the staff cooks for us, and it's good old Southern cooking overall. I would encourage you not to come on a diet those couple days you come. Bring your appetite and enjoy the good food that we have overall.
Great. Thank you, Lori. And then talking a little bit about the activities that we get to do on this trip. So it is a shorter trip, but you do get to fit a lot of things in, including kayaking, which I'll definitely let Lori talk a bit about this, but you can be a beginner, intermediate, or advanced kayaker, and the trip would still be a great fit for you either way. There's lots and lots of wildlife viewing, so you get to spend a lot of time hanging out with the animals. You get to hike the Salt Marsh Trail. And overall, it's a pretty great opportunity to get to do all of these things. So I'll go ahead and let Lori talk a little bit more about these activities.
This trip is great if you've never kayaked before, or if you're an experienced kayaker. If you've never kayaked before, we work with you. We will teach you how to kayak. The distances are not that long as far as from where we launch and where we go. We're flat water. We're on rivers. This is not the river overall. There is some tidal impact, but it's not significant overall. And so it's a great place to feel more comfortable in a kayak, but we've also had people who are big kayakers and they want to perfect their strokes or their techniques, and they ask for impact from us guides. We're happy to share it. We're also happy to shut up and let you kayak. If you're a good kayaker on your own, we will let you do that overall, and you can just enjoy it. The wildlife that we see, from the manatees themselves to the birds overall, there's such a variety of birds. And I know that Annie's got another slide here with birds on it overall, but you feel like you're really immersed in nature. And the wonderful thing about being in a kayak is you kayak down the river and you come around a bend, you never know what you're going to see. Whether it's under the water, the manatees themselves, the turtles, the fish that we see, as well as all the bird life that's in that area. The last day, we do a short hike to an observation tower, Salt Marsh Trail. We look at birds. We get a short walk to really stretch legs before we drop people at the airport to get on their flights and head home overall. So this trip the hiking is minimal. I always say bring really even comfortable shoes. It's not a big hiking trip at all. This is really a paddling trip. And so that's what you should really plan on, bringing your clothing and stuff like that for paddling. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Great, thank you. Moving on to talk a little bit about the weather here in this area. So just so you guys are aware, there can be a really broad range of temperatures this time of year. You can have upper 60s all the way to some lower 40s for temperature. And then I've included an image where you can see some travelers previously, and there's a lot of different layers going on. You see some people in shorts, some people in jackets. So you can definitely just bring a variation of items here with your comfort of temperatures and just be prepared to layer. And something to note here is that the manatees cannot live in water that is below 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And so the amount and types of the animals that you'll see on these trips can 100% be weather dependent. That's just something to be aware of on this trip. And again, I'll pass it on to Lori.
Yeah, basically what happens out in the Gulf, when the temperature in the Gulf drops to 68 degrees or below, the manatees have to move into the warmer springs areas to maintain their body temperature and be able to survive. Otherwise, they suffer from cold stress and can die overall. So our ability to view the manatees is really dependent upon the weather, and the Gulf being the appropriate temperature for the manatees. Typically, this is a perfect time during January that we have our trip, and we've been really lucky to see manatees over time. So, but I will say to you, we have had temperatures during the daytime go up into the high 80s, low 90s, and we have started out kayaking in the morning in 30-degree temperatures. So we have a variety, we have a real varying, temperature range overall. So we'll talk about bringing your rain gear and bringing clothing, as Annie said, for layers, because you can always take your, clothes off, and you can pare down or you can add them on overall. Sun protection is important, but mostly we are in and out of the shade. Depending upon, with shade trees and things like that along the river. It's not bright sun all the time overall when we're paddling, but we encourage people to bring sunglasses, polarized glasses. If you had them, makes it a little bit easier to see the manatees in the water, and, a hat for sun protection overall. But the packing list addresses the need to bring layers and have a variety of things depending upon. I always, in 40 degrees, I'm in shorts. but 40 degrees, some people have leggings and a lightweight hiking pant over it. It depends on what you're most comfortable with when you're paddling overall. So
awesome. Thank you. So this is when I'll definitely pass it on to Lori, but a big part of the trip is getting to see birds. So if you're really into birding, you're going to see a variety of birds out there. So Lori, if you want to rattle off that list, I know, of birds that you get to see, go for it.
Well, basically, we're going to see cormorants. We see pelicans, blue herons, egrets. If we're lucky, we may see roseate spoonbills. Couple times on the trip, we've seen them overall. We've got turkey vultures that are along the Chassahowitzka River overall. So there's a variety. My favorite bird is the anhinga. We often see anhingas swimming and also drying their wings on branches as we paddle underneath them overall. And the wonderful thing about being in a kayak is that particularly when we paddle up side stream off of the Chaz, we are going around corners and bends in a narrower river area, and the birds are feeding and they're in the trees. And, you know, if the weather's right and things are good for us, we see just a variety of birds up close and personal. People have gotten some amazing pictures on this trip. So the kayak enables us to be able to do that and come around corners and be quiet overall. So the birds can be wonderful along both these rivers.
Yeah, and actually all these images that I've included have been either taken by guides or participants in previous years. So it's a good example of how close that you'll get to these really beautiful creatures. Yeah. And then this is time for Gina to shine. So Gina's from Save the Manatee, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about them.
Yes, so Save the Manatee Club, as you can see on the screen, you'll see Jimmy Buffett there. He was a co-founder of Save the Manatee Club back in 1981 with our former senator and then governor at the time, Bob Graham. And they started this little group really to uphold the laws that have been put into effect in the 70s about manatee zones and warm water effluents with fluoridation, and created a lovely group of very small group of people. And 42 years later, we are larger with our support, and we are now a completely independent nonprofit. So we are fundraising machine because we don't actually have facilities where we rehabilitate or rescue manatees. We are out here providing education to as many people as will listen and going to events and festivals and just trying to have a lot of outreach with marinas and kayak renters and lovely guide groups. In fact, we have a program called Guardian Guides that many of the tours in Crystal River are part of. And they go through a certification with us so they understand how to interact with a wild animal that is federally protected. Manatees are still on the endangered list. They were downgraded with the last president to threatened. We've already taken all the legal action to get them upgraded again because we have had a situation on the east coast of Florida and lost a couple thousand manatees because of all the pollution in the water. So we're in what's called an unusual mortality event with manatees. And thankfully, you're not going to that part of the state, so you won't have to see anything disturbing. And the Gulf of Mexico has done a really great job, especially in the areas you're in, about replanting seagrass. You know, the red tides, which we are currently or were having in the Gulf, are always, you know, they occur naturally in water, but they're exacerbated by human pollution and chemicals that we put into the water. So the manatees there are doing much better with seagrass, especially north of in the part you'll be in. So, our work is all the things I mentioned, plus we also help with other sirenians, like the West African manatee, the dugong in Australia, other countries that have Florida manatee or West Indian manatee concerns, like Belize, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. There's a ton of islands that we help support in their efforts to rescue and rehabilitate injured manatees, because that's really where we're at. These wild animals don't need us at all. In fact, they need nothing from us. And many of the things that we do as humans impact them and threaten them and hurt and sometimes kill them, because manatees have no predator in nature. So, they're not out there looking around being scared because they're not prey for anyone. So, but they are quite curious. And so, if you happen to be in the water and have a manatee come up to you, or in your kayak, have a manatee come up to you, the rules are, don't reach out for it. It's really hard. I know that face is a corpse, but don't reach out to touch it. Because that's illegal, and it's not good for the manatee. So, it's really important that y'all understand the effect that you have on these lovely animals. They are, I like to refer to them as large gray blobs of love, because that's really what they are. Quite curious. They'll check things out. They do see color. We have data that shows they do react to blue and green. They can't see red, so because they do have rods and cones in their eyes. So it's really an amazing experience to have a manatee come up right next to your kayak and exhale, and you get to hear and sometimes smell that. It's not great. They have sort of a breath problem. So, they really can't floss. So manatees don't have any way to hurt you, nor do they have the instinct to hurt you. All of their teeth are molars, and so they're flat. And so, the rules are really simple, and I'm sure Lori will tell you, is you take your paddle out of the water, and you let whatever's going to happen. The manatee may bump into your kayak. It may mouth the edge of your kayak. And that's considered a blessing, let me tell you, because that's an amazing experience. They might lift the kayak up out of the water. We have a few playful ones at Blue Springs State Park over in the middle of the state, that's off the St. Johns River, that have knocked our researchers and some of our manatee observers in the water. I am one of them. Buckeye got very playful. Again, not malicious at all, but just curious. And sometimes they just don't even care that you're there. Some are not curious, right? So, manatees are very individual, from two truths and a lie, right? They're very individual. They actually don't live in a population. And it's quite misleading when you see large groups together in the winter. And as Lori said before, and Annie, that is because of warm water. So those are conveniences for the manatee. That's why they're in large groups. It's not because they're a family or a herd or a pod. A group of manatees is called an aggregate, which by definition is the sum of the individual parts. And so they are quite individual. Some are curious, some aren't, right? Some like to travel, some don't. It's all just as individual personalities and people is the same thing for manatees. So the most crucial relationship in manatees is between the female and the calves they're raising, and especially in the cold weather. So when a manatee goes into a warm water refuge, it is for their life to continue. This is very serious, right? And so we have had instances like these folks that are touching this manatee where we have a warm water refuge, a buoy line, and then it's a wall of people. And that is obviously impacting the natural movement of those animals. We've had, manatees can be quite startled. And that other truth in the beginning was that they can go very quickly, over 20 miles an hour, for a very short amount of time, because, that tail is their huge engine. And when they are startled, it's it's nuts. I mean, they all go in a different direction. And sometimes that can be a calf slaps his tail on the water. Sometimes it can be it's just anything that disrupts the water and they kind of jolt. And a lot of times it's people. And so, you know, if people form a barrier to them getting in and out, that's not comfortable, right? You wouldn't like that if someone blocked your doorway. And so we've had manatees freak out and go into cold water because too many humans are trying to interact with them in warm water or on the cusp of warm water. And so the best thing is always, and the legal thing is passive observation. If you are in the water in a wetsuit, you know, it's just cross your hands over your chest and let what's ever going to happen. I mean, they might be curious about you, they may not. And remember, they cannot hurt you in any way. But the separation of a mother and calf can mean certain death for a calf, especially if they're so startled that they go in different directions and can't find their way back. Calves cannot be in cold water really at all. You know, many times the females will leave calves in a warm water refuge to go eat where there's food, which is usually in colder water, are always 70 degrees, and they don't really grow vegetation because there's not enough available oxygen. So it's always adjacent to water that has food, and so that's really important to the female so that they can continue to produce milk for the calves. So this is all about, you know, enjoying nature. I love that y'all are in kayaks because there's nothing to hurt the manatee. You know, you take your paddle out of the water, have your GoPro on, and get some of the best pictures and experiences of your life. I mean, that's really what this amazing guide company is talking about, and we are in full support of that. I mean, it's just so important that you understand how you impact these wild animals with your actions. So Save the Manatee Club has this wonderful program called our Adopt a Manatee. It's symbolic. You don't have to take it home, so don't worry. You're not traveling back to Colorado or wherever with a manatee. And these two that the venture company has AGC. I keep having to say the words.
Yep, AGC.
Have adopted Ariel and Betsy, and they are both permanent residents of Homosassa Springs. And HSSP has a terrific program. And so, as we said in the beginning, they do rehabilitate. And it's really fascinating because there are actually 4 girls, the gals, as we call them, that live permanently at HSSP. And they serve as ambassadors for the wild manatees. They are all too damaged by people and injured to live on their own in the wild. So they are permanent there. And a really fun fact, you might get a kick out of this, is that because they're all females, whenever they have a calf that's being rehabilitated, maybe it's an orphan or something's happened, they spontaneously lactate and they can nurse the calf. And it doesn't matter how old they are. We've had manatees. Juliet at the Miami Sea Aquarium is in her 70s and she still spontaneously lactates when a calf comes in to be rehabilitated. So they can feed them, which is truly amazing. And they have to help supplement, right? But it's really, really cool to see that happen. So, and I asked our manatee biologist and she said, sure. Yeah, you know, we're still amazed by manatees every day. So yes, you too can adopt a manatee. We do have about 32 in the program. You can go to our website, savethemanatee.org, and all of this information is available for you to see. But we would love for you to adopt, and your adoption money goes toward conservation for all wild manatees. So we appreciate any support.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, so I wanted to show off our 2 manatees that Adventures in Good Company has adopted. So here we have Betsy and Ariel. It was really exciting to be able to adopt them as a company. And we can even watch for them on the live cam that Save the Manatees provides. And it's really wonderful. I really appreciate all of you attending. We hope to see you out on the waters. If you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out. And then if you have questions about the manatees specifically or Save the Manatees, you can definitely reach out to Gina. Thanks for being here. Thanks for learning about the manatees with us. Thank you, Gina, for being here. And thanks, Lori. Wonderful to be with you all this morning. Thank you.